Hi, everyone. I'm about to let my very special guest on here, Miss LeAnn Phelan. Let's see here, admit. It's a very pretty picture.
Hi, Marcy.
I need to see you. I see your picture.
Oh, I've been doing this for a year and I didn't have my picture on. I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to see your face.
Good to see you too.
Oh my gosh, thanks for coming on. I was just telling everyone a little bit about your very impressive and extensive resume. I forget how impressive my friend is. You have done so much. You've had an amazing career and continue to have an amazing career. And I'm just so proud of you.
Well, I'm glad I missed that part. And thank you very much. That's very sweet. Did you tell them that we were background singers together?
I did not tell them about that you and I actually met. We were background singers for an 80s rock singer named Henry Lee Summer. I don't know if anyone remembers. He had a couple of big hits, Hey Baby, and what was the other
You
one?
know, here's a funny story about that. I don't know if I told you, but I got a cassette to learn a song for the audition.
Yeah.
And um Wish I Had a Girl Who Walked Like That was on one of the sides. And I didn't learn that song because I thought, oh, that's not this guy, because I know that song. I don't know who this guy is. So I
You're
didn't
kidding.
learn. No, I was like, oh, that's him. So anyway,
That's funny. And that was his big hit, I think, Wish I
that
Had a
was this
Girl.
big hit. Yeah.
That's so funny. So for anyone that doesn't, I mean, LeAnn and I both had 80s permed hair, the big 80s perm.
Yeah.
And then we both played keyboards. And so we were on either side of the stage. So we were like little twin keyboard players with big
Yes.
brown permed hair. We were rockers, LeAnn.
Yeah, we were pretty cool. Just ask your son Derek. He'll tell
Derek
you.
thought we embarrassed him so bad. Oh my gosh.
Oh.
He's over it. He's over it. Yeah. So yeah, we met doing that. LeAnn, I did tell him that you had been out with Steve Winwood on the Roll With It tour, the World Roll With It tour. I mean, that must have been an amazing experience.
Oh my gosh, I mean that's the beauty of music is you get to see the world and hopefully get paid while you're doing it
Hmm.
and be with people that you like. So yes, I was 21 years old and
Oh wow.
going to Japan and London and all these places and getting to play at Royal Albert Hall with England's favorite son and just with a great group of people. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
amazing.
It is fun. I mean, that's what I'm actually in a hotel room right now in Atlantic City because I'm out with Christopher Cross and we've got the day off here. We're playing here tomorrow, but it is a really fun thing. What?
I was just going to say, I thought about this recently, and all I could think about growing up was singing, and I loved being a background singer.
Mhm.
And so all that stuff happened, and, it's just like normal life. Like, I think the year after the Roll With It tour, I was singing 5 times a day in Opryland in a life-size jukebox, like you just never know what's coming. And I had auditioned for Winona. She had her first solo record coming out, and it got down to 2 girls. We got to come sing with the band, and I did not get it. I was crushed, devastated. And I just thought about that moment because that tour, not getting that tour, shifted me into the business side of music, which was such a better fit for me. So all those pivots that we make, just following what we think are failures or not failures, they're just like God, source, all of that stuff, like trying to focus you to some place that's better suited for you and really more of what you wanted in the first place. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I love that word pivot. it's a pivot. It's not a failure. It's a
Mhm,
redirect.
mhm,
It's like God redirecting you. And I've always told my daughter Carrie that sometimes rejection is protection. It's like you're crushed. You think because you think this is what I want to do,
mhm.
and really God has a better plan for you. There's a better fit somewhere. But that was I was going to ask you too, because I think it was around 96 when you started at Windswept and you started going into, was that your first kind of venue into the actual business side of the music business?
Yeah, I had a job in between there that gave me a lot of time to think, but I went to Quad Studios,
Oh, I
and I
forgot
was,
about
yeah, I
quad.
was literally responsible for making coffee, getting bagels. There were 4 studios there. I was doing billing, invoicing, and made like less than $20,000 a year, and I was so happy.
Wow, that says so much.
Yeah, I was so happy. I loved like seeing all the musicians coming in, and just I've always loved being in the studio. And that was just a really fun job. And I was just kind of led over to Windswept, and again started as a receptionist. We bought all the furniture for that office, the fax machine. I was typing, but it was lyrics and little J cards that went in the cassettes or the DATs that we were doing. And I was the tape copy person. So every song that came in back then, as it transferred over into our catalog, it was, you can only do it in real time. You can't do it digitally. So I was learning the entire catalog and learning about country music because I came from pop music.
Right.
And yeah, and it was just the perfect, isn't that, I've never really thought about that before, but it was the perfect way for me to develop in publishing. you
Mm.
know it is just to understand what songwriters in Nashville were really doing. I could hear them in the room next to me creating a song, and then they wouldn't be there one day, they'd be in the studio, and then they come back with this, you know, cassette of their session, and then I was transferring it over, and I was just going, oh, this writer does this, and and then another level would be if one of those songs got cut, and then just seeing, and a lot of times the cut was disappointing to me because I loved the demos so much.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've heard, yeah, that happened a lot too. I would hear the
I'm
same
sure it
thing.
happened a lot with you because your demos were probably so great because you were singing on them.
Well, when I was writing full time for Curb, I didn't sing all my demos. I really tried to find the right voice, if I felt like it was really the right thing for me to do. Of course, then as the music business, you know, budget started getting smaller, and they were like, "Yeah, let's just have you sing all of them, so we don't have to hire, singers." And that's kind of the direction it ended up going. But um, I have other friends that are in the business side of the music business, and it's just this creative environment. They're not necessarily the ones writing the songs anymore or making the playing the music or whatever. Even my son Derek, who is has a successful guitar player in Nashville, has kind of moved over and is just slowly kind of moving it over into some of the business side of things and the production side of things. And you, LeAnn, you've always had such a nurturing spirit about you. And so I could see how you would be drawn to nurture this creativity, which also sort of fosters your own creativity, right? It's like you get in the room with that kind of stuff and it invades everyone's spirit, correct?
Absolutely. And I don't know why, no one in my family is musical. Um, but I somehow got an opportunity to start taking voice lessons because I was shy. And I mean, I had never opened my mouth to sing, but I think my mom was just trying to pull me out of my shell. And became something I really love to do. But looking back at it, I always did that by myself. Like I would go down in the basement and practice. So
Right.
I've always been a little bit of a loner with that, but I've just been drawn to creative people.
Yeah.
And when I switched over into the business side of it, a lot of people on the business side are singers and musicians and people like that, as you know.
Mhm.
And I think the advantage to that is that we can speak a certain language. Like I do know what it's like to sleep in a bunk on a bus, barreling down the highway
Yep,
and
you
being on
do.
stage and all that stuff. And I do know what it feels like to not have a song that's in the sweet spot of your voice, or just, there have been songs that I have loved and I've tried to sing, and I would just know that just isn't a fit for me for whatever. Like I understand all of that.
Right.
And so it made me a really great publisher. But yes, I do try to nurture and encourage and just really hold space for people, because sometimes in order for all of us listening, and all of us are creative, we may not give ourselves credit for that, but if you think about it, in order to get in that space, you have to have time to be there. Like I took up painting when I turned 50, and I just love it. And I I learned a lot from it, because when I'm painting, it'll be like 4 hours later and I won't even know. And then I'll look at what I painted and just think, how did I do that? I don't even know how I did it. So I feel like for songwriters to be able to walk into a room and get into that space, they've got to get stuff off the plate, even if they, had somebody cut them off in traffic on the way to work, and they're just still kind of mad about that, and they want to come into my office and just talk about that. That's fine, because that's going to get them clear and be able to go into the room. And Marcia, I know you're a fan of Julia Cameron and The Artist's Way.
Mhm.
And I think that's what those morning pages are about. You've probably talked about that before. She wants you to first thing in the morning, sit down and just write out 3 stream of consciousness pages. And it's really just to dump all of that stuff, like all the stuff you're thinking about. I got to get this done and that done. I was still mad about the other thing from yesterday, and just blah, like just dump it. And that way you can clear that stuff out to really get in alignment with God and with your ultimate creative source, and just
Mhm.
have that come through you.
Mhm.
So I know that that's possible for everybody. And I talk about that in my workshops. And I actually started, I don't know if I told you this, but I just this month, I started a mindset course. Our last meeting is tomorrow, because I think creative mindset is so important, and just being able to tap in and push the other stuff out when you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was I've been doing a little bit of research just on why it's important for us all to get in touch with our creative sides. And I have girlfriends that are always like, "Oh, I don't have a creative bone in my body. I wish I could sing like you. Or I wish I could do." And I'm like, "No, no. We're all made in the image of God, who's the ultimate creator, right? So we all have the ability to be creative. Now, sometimes it looks like gardening, cooking, uh, eh, I don't know, creative writing, painting. I love that. I didn't realize that you were starting to paint. I love that you did that. Another friend of mine recently retired, and she was really looking forward to retirement. And then she kind of got bored, and she was like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, well, you have all this time. Like, what have you always wanted to do? And she said, well, I've always wanted to paint, but at my age, I'll never be able to get good at it. And I'm like, wait, wait.
It's the perfect time to
It's
start.
exactly. And it
Yeah,
doesn't even matter if you get quote unquote good at it, right?
yeah.
It's the process. It's like opening up your brain and starting to think outside of the box. And then when you do that, it like affects other areas of your life, don't you think?
I absolutely do. It's a release, and it's you know what it is? You get to live in that space for a minute. And if we can transcend even 5 minutes a day, we're going to have a better day.
Mm-hmm.
And some people do that through prayer or meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also do it through just losing yourself and making something. You can, I'm just going to throw this out because it's really fun. And I've done this with my girlfriends, but maybe you can get a sponsorship out of this, Marcia, but there's a store called Paper Source, that has all the cards and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And they have card making classes, and it's so fun. And I've gotten a group of girls together to just make cards. And we at the time, my father was in a nursing home, and I love making cards. And I just had decided I'm going to, make a card for everybody there. And I think there were like 50 people there. So I did the card making class, and all the girls helped me. And we just made these beautiful cards for everybody. So you can just make them for fun and just drop them off at the local retirement home, and they'll love it. And it'll be really special.
Oh, I love that idea. Are there like local places to do that all over the country?
I think paper sources
Oh,
everywhere.
wow.
I know we have two here in Nashville where we are,
Wow.
but they have everything ready for you. Like they'll have a template of the cards you're going to make, and then they'll show you how to do it. It's so fun.
That
And
does sound
so,
like a lot of fun.
yeah,
Yeah, I think there is definitely something about tapping into your creative side, learning to nurture that, that helps make you feel kind of more whole and healthy overall. My friend Abby, she lives in Indianapolis, and she is going to be 59 this Sunday. And just in the last
happy
year,
birthday.
happy birthday, Abby. She just decided she wanted to learn how to play the drums, and she bought a drum kit, and
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
she has been loving it. Like she texts me and she's like, I feel alive when I get behind those drums. Like she just loves it. And she was like, I can't wait to get home from work and practice my drums. And she's like, she doesn't have any designs on becoming a professional drummer, but
Yeah.
during that time behind the drums, like I think she just sort of loses, like you said, you get in this space, you get in the moment, and it's just you and your creation and what you want to do there. And I think every woman needs to find a way to take a little time each week and pursue something that they're really drawn to, you
You
know.
know, I think you brought up a good point. You don't have to learn something or get into something to become the Michael Jordan of that particular thing. And as you know, during COVID, I started working with a lot of people online, just with their creativity. And I have a part of my business now called LP Creative Therapy. And so there was a woman that I met through a class that I took. And she wanted to meet with me, and she had written all these poems, and she kind of wanted somebody to look at them. And her thought was, are these songs? And she and I met, and I had her read one of her poems to me. And the poem was something she had written for her daughter. And apparently, her daughter had gone through a divorce. And the poem was basically telling her daughter how wonderful she was and how she was going to get over this. And there was one point in the middle of the poem where the lady that I was talking to, the mom, got choked up reading it. And I'm kind of
Oh
tearing up
yeah, I'm
just
so
saying this story. So she gets to the end of the poem and she's looking at me, and I've cried, she's cried. And I told her, I said, hang on one second, I'll be right back. And there's a framed poem that I have called Red Birds, and it's right outside my bedroom door. And I met this kid on the streets of Asheville. He was out there with the typewriter and said, I'll write a poem. You give me a subject and you can donate. And I gave him the subject of Red Birds, and he wrote this gorgeous poem for me.
right on the spot.
And on the spot. And it's gorgeous. So I got the frame off my wall. I come back to the Zoom meeting and I hold it up for this lady. I said, do you see this? This frame cost at least $100. And this person wrote this poem for me. It means so much to me. What you do means so much to you could just write poems for people. You don't have to write a country song. You need to just write a poem for your girlfriend next door who, whatever, had a new grandbaby or what, like, that is what your creativity is. That's what your gift is. And it just, when I showed her my framed poem, I think she got it. And she started doing that for people in her town. I'm gonna have to get her name so we can attach it to the podcast. But
Yeah.
I think people, sometimes the best thing that I can do for somebody, and that I know you do this for people, Marcia, but it really is that mirror approach. And I need that sometimes. I need somebody to tell me, like, hey, look what you just made. That is awesome. I see that helping people, because I don't know what it is about where I grew up or whatever, but I don't want to step into the power of that sometimes, because I feel like it might be bragging, or I might, I'm hearing this phrase from growing up, like, don't get too uppity, or those kinds of things. And it's like, when I look at somebody like Oprah Winfrey or somebody like that just steps into her power, it makes me think, why would I not do that too?
Yes.
And so if I can mirror that to somebody else, and maybe in doing that, I can just see a little bit of that back for myself too, that would be amazing. So
That is beautiful. Like I have chills because I think we do struggle to understand the value that we have just by giving what we have to give. We don't have to give what the I don't have to give what you give. You don't have to give what I give, right? We just have to find our passions and let those passions lead us into what we're meant to do, what God created us to do. We all have not just one gift. I think we all have several gifts. And there was a book I read years ago, Max, is it Lucado or Lucado? I never know how to say that. Is it
I think
Lucado?
it's Lucado, I
Okay,
think. Yeah.
Max Lucado. And he wrote a book called
Is
Cure
it
for
CD or Zitty? Sorry, everybody. That's a real inside joke. I'm so sorry, but I have to
Oh my gosh. That was one of our yeah. So many road stories that last forever that never go away. But you're right. But he wrote a book called Cure for the Common Life that I read years ago. And it talks about that, finding your sweet spot, like finding, like for you, like you were just saying, you started out in music because you were drawn to the creativity of music and of making music, but you also have the gift of encouragement, the gift of nurturing, so you found your sweet spot in taking all of those little gifts and then putting together where you are right now, which I want to talk about, this your LP creative therapy workshops, because you have one. it's the last one of the year, I think, that's starting a week from today on October
October 4th.
4th.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, just today I was thinking, with all these new businesses and everything, it's one of the most difficult things is getting the word out and trying to figure out how to do that because it's so new for me. I basically had a wardrobe of black clothes because I was an artist manager before this, like you're just in the background like these ninjas or something. But now, I have to put myself out there so that I can serve people and help, if I don't show them who I am, they're not going to be drawn to what I'm doing. So I was thinking today about this, and this is, I think, a really good way to describe what the workshop is. But basically, I have a lot of songwriters that aren't happy with where they are in the process. Maybe they don't have a publishing deal, or they don't have a big writing community, or they are releasing their music on streaming and it's not getting heard, or they just don't feel like they ever get to talk to somebody that's really in the music business. So this just hit me on my walk today. And I thought, it's like you as the songwriter are standing there. You want to get on the elevator to go up to the penthouse because all the action's taking place up at the penthouse, and the best views and all the superstars are in the penthouse. And so you push the elevator up button and the door opens, but it closes, and you run up and you've got both hands. You're trying to pry the elevator door open and you're trying to get your guitar and everything in the elevator. That's how it feels. And I just am likening my workshop to me being on the elevator that's going up, it's not going down. And I just push the door open button for you so you can get on the elevator and we can go up to the penthouse and we can look around. And what we're going to find up there is you're going to hear everybody's story that helps you know you're on the right path, because they all went through these things that you're going through. They all start. I'm thinking of Carly Pierce in particular. She's a friend of mine, and she graciously came on the very first workshop that I did. And she has this tumultuous story, on a label, dropped, and had a publishing deal, dropped, and ended up singing background for Lucy Hale, thinking her she wasn't meant to stand on front of the stage and all that. But even with the songs, the very songs that made her a superstar, she had a manager in town tell her that those songs just weren't special enough. And that somebody else told her she should probably think about going home. And so that's the kind of stuff you're going to learn while we're walking around in the penthouse. And then we're going to come back down, and you're going to go back out into the world doing this and taking those next right steps, because the only people that, quote, failed in music are the ones that quit, and there's just certain mountains to climb. And that brings us to another point, actually, which is about the journey. And I know you get this, Marcia. You are somebody that really enjoys every second of your life. Like, I see your posts when you're doing your morning meditations and your Bible reading, and you enjoy everything. You have a natural positive disposition. And I had a unique experience this past summer where through the workshop, I met this woman that thought this creative conversation was amazing, and she wanted me to come speak to her employees. And I thought, I will say this, when she said that, I got my body kind of tingled. I was like, oh my gosh, that would be so. I just knew at that moment that was going to happen, and I didn't even know what it was. you ever had that feeling?
Yes, ma'am. I know what you mean.
Yeah. So I was like, for like a split second, I got an aerial view of everything and I was like, oh, I see how all this connected. I'm going to do that. And then it was gone. But fast forward 6 months, and I didn't know where this lady worked, but she worked for Kraft Heinz. And she had me come in and speak at her national sales meeting.
Wow.
And I was just, the whole time I was like, oh my gosh, how is this happening? And it was this journey to get to this point in June, where the actual speech took place, and it was on Zoom. So on that day, I worked up to this point. I've been practicing and doing all this stuff and translating a message over to corporate that could be useful, but using, creative skills from songwriters and taking it there. So anyway, the speech was over, and then I took off my pretty top that I had on and got my sweatshirt on. I went out on the road to walk the dogs. And I was just thinking, like, wow, that just happened. That was really fun. Wow. Gosh, it was so fun meeting Deborah back in December. I remember that feeling I got. And then she sent me some materials, and then I threw her some ideas, and we went back and forth, and then had that meeting with the executives, and two of them left the meeting, and I thought, well, this bombed. And then they called and said, we want you to do it. And then, I was just thinking of all that stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's the journey. Like, the journey was so fun. Like, just every little step in that journey, and just being inspired to like come up with something, and getting that download from God to even figure out what to talk about, and just one step, one step, one step. And that is our whole life. Like, we're not going to get to, doing that talk was fun, but I didn't crash afterwards, because I was just reveling in the whole journey of it. And then I was thinking, what's the next journey? Like, what's the next thing? So I do want people to realize that is just the constant turnover in our lives. And I say that to the songwriters, just meeting this one little person. I say that to Evan, my songwriter that I manage. I remind him all the time, like, let's enjoy this moment, because this one little thing happened and it made us so excited. Like, let's enjoy that. And then this next thing will happen. And I think, hopefully that could be a big takeaway for people to just, we all know this, but sometimes we have to hear it again and just realize we need to drop in when things are happening and really be thankful for it and celebrate it and know that something else is coming.
Yes. Because there's a lot of little beautiful points along the way that if we're only focused on the end result, I remember when I was, writing songs full time, and I had a song put on hold by a major label, and then it did not get cut. But I was lucky enough. My publisher at the time said, "Celebrate the hold." Like, okay, you didn't get the cut, but the hold meant somebody loved that song. Like, somebody, it touched somebody. Like, they loved it enough to. So, like, don't, just because the end result didn't end up in this moment, in this instance where you wanted it to go, doesn't mean there wasn't beauty in that journey. And yeah, I think it is. That's one of the things I have learned, just kind of in life in general, is trying to really live in the moment and find the beauty in that day. And there's beauty in every day. I mean, even on the hardest of days, I can find something, that I can be thankful for and be grateful for. And that has made a huge difference in my life personally. Um, and I know you live the same way. I know I've seen that with you too. Um, so, how do these? I know we're going to link up your website, which will let everyone know how to get in touch with you if they want to sign up for your workshops. What are the workshops? Are they like just a weekend thing? Are they a few weeks? How do they work?
I've been doing them. It runs for 5 weeks, and
Five
it's
weeks.
for 5 Mondays in a row, and it's at
Okay.
3 p.m. Central, because had some people from Australia and the UK and
Awesome.
all kinds of different places. It's the beauty of Zoom that they can
Mhm.
hop in and take these workshops. And, I get to know who's in there and serve that group. So every workshop has been a little bit different as to who I bring in, based on the needs of the people that buy it.
I love
So
that.
yeah, that's kind of fun for me. And I'm thinking of changing it up next year. So this might be the last 5-week workshop, and it'd be a great way to jump in if you're curious. There's a lot of stuff on the website that'll tell you more about how it goes. Um, and I also, just on the website, I have a newsletter that it just comes out sporadically, but you can just sign up to be on the email list. And there's another really cool download if you are a songwriter. It's called 4 Steps Closer to a Publishing Deal. And then I just say it only took me 25 years to write, but basically it's just a printout that it only shows you what I've realized is my process in signing someone. And I think if you're a songwriter wondering what are publishers looking for, then you can read this and go, oh, well, that's how one person does it most of the time anyway. So
Well, I know that anyone who signs up and gets mentored by you in any way is just a lucky, blessed person, because you, not only are you a loving, like you said, nurturing person, but you also just have just a wealth of knowledge and years of experience that you just, you don't get in front of people like you easily. And so I think it's so great that you've decided. I think you started this during the pandemic, right? You were like, how can I serve people? And this is what you came up with, which I think is just amazing.
I
Amazing.
know. Well, I saw people like baking bread and playing cellos and doing their thing.
Right.
I was expecting to see you out on the sun porch with your keyboard and just, singing Amazing Grace. But I was just like, I'm going to put a flyer out. I have all these, I used to work at ASCAP. So I have all these, what I thought was I was managing a guy named Jake Rose, who's amazing. And we had just done a video and put it out. We had all these plans and everything stopped. And Jake had so many people around him. He had Grammy Award winning producers and CAA and me as his manager and publishers. And I just thought about all the people that I used to meet with at ASCAP that are just trying to get that momentum up to get things like what Jake has. And that was just my instinct. I just put a really cheesy flyer out that said, I'll meet with you for free in April. Let's keep your creative momentum going. And it was a typical imposter syndrome moment when I did that. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. Who is going to want to do this? I mean, imposter syndrome is a real
It
thing. I just
is.
want everybody to know, and you can use me as an example. I've been meeting with songwriters for 25 years, and I felt like an imposter saying, hey, songwriter, I'll meet with you. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, but it is a very real thing. I mean, same
It's
thing.
real.
I do songwriting classes with songu.com, and songwriters come along and I help them. And when they first asked me to do that, I was like, I don't know how to teach songwriting. Like, what do I have to offer? And they're like, you've been songwriting for 20 years. You've been a professional. You have value. You have worth. Think about when you were 16 years old and you were trying to write songs down in Arkansas, what you wouldn't have given to be able to sit down on a Zoom and talk to someone that's been doing it for years and has like a wealth of knowledge. And I'm like, oh, it's like we just undervalue our experience, right?
Well, I've thought about this because I just saw this last night and may not be everybody's cup of tea. I'm not saying go watch this or anything like that, but I Instagram is my social media platform of choice, and I do love a good comedian. I need to laugh more in
Yeah.
life. I just really do. So I saw this post from Amy Schumer. We're
She's
mentioning
funny.
Amy Schumer on the God and My Girlfriend's podcast.
It's okay.
But
She's hilarious.
she is hilarious, but she made a really serious post last night. So she had just severe endometriosis, and she had surgery for that, or whatever it was. But she was on her Instagram saying, I have been in pain. I'm 40 years old. I've been in pain for, 25 years or whatever, however many years. And being, trying to downplay it because I just thought this is what women go through. And she just went on and on about how, again, it's a little R-rated, but the point of it, just as women, there are times where, like, we're just brought up to take it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like the severe pain that she even said, the doctor that she had, her appendix had been hurting, and she was going to mention that, but she didn't want him to look at her and go, oh, great, one more thing. What else? And that endometriosis was all around her appendix and everything, like the stuff that we don't even own up to, that we're just used to pushing down and taking.
Yes.
Is pretty incredible. That was the point that I was trying to make. But we do have to let ourselves feel good more of the time. And if that is booking a card making class at Paper Source, or listening to Marcia's podcast, or coming to the workshop, like just you don't have to be the martyr of your life.
Yes.
Take some time for yourself, nurture yourself, and when you feel better, when you feel good, everybody else is going to feel good too. So that's what I hope for everybody listening.
1,000%. And I know that that's what you and I both are trying to do with me with the ministry and the podcast, and you with your creative therapy workshops, and just yeah, your whole business. It's like helping other people own their value, and nurture themselves in all kinds of ways, whether it's creatively or spiritually, or like we were talking about, and we're running out of time, so we got to wrap this up. But um,
Imagine that.
I know we could talk forever. We don't talk enough. We need to
We
talk
don't.
more often. But um, we do like to end the podcast with 3 questions, because we do try to help women in 3 specific areas: spiritually, with their friendships, and with self-care. And I know self-care is kind of like everyone's tired of hearing about self-care, but it is important. It's women, I think, in general, like you said with Amy Schumer, they just think they have to stay small. Like they don't want to have to say, hey, I need help. I need help. So they just stay silent. And that's what we have to um, help women get over. We have to say, no, it's okay to say what you need. And then when you're well taken care of, you can take care of everybody else so much better. So let's talk about our spiritual lives for a minute. Do you have like a favorite spiritual practice that you do right now to just get in touch with your creator or your higher power?
You know what? I do. And I have this beautiful screen porch outside of my bedroom. And so I think it's important to have a place that you can go to tap in. And I'll just tell you, this is what I do. I don't care what the weather is. I don't care if it's raining or it's freezing or it's hot. I'll turn on the fan. But I feel like going out on the screen porch and being outside is another level to it. But I do some yoga stretches, and I turn on a meditation series that I like right now. It's from Deepak Chopra, and it's called Self Empowerment. It's a 21-day, and I've listened to that over and over again. And so I'm kind of stretching while there's a little intro part to it. And then when you get ready for meditation, I get in the swing, and one of my dogs is in the swing too. I have a swing, and I meditate, and I face where the sun comes up, and that's my time. And if I have time after that, I'll write my journal or write in just a download notebook. I've got all kinds of notebooks and journals. So I don't want to bore the audience with what different ones mean, but I'll write if I have time, and those will be my best days when I do that.
Oh, I love that. I love that. My guest last week was talking about the importance of journaling, how that has helped her in her life. And I was asking her a little about it because I've never been, I said, a journaler. Is that a word, journaler? She said, yep.
Yeah.
But she said, you know what, Marcia? I bet your journals look an awful lot like songs. And I was like, that's true. I may not have actually written out journals, but I've written my feelings out in many a song, that's for sure.
And your Instagram posts, like
Oh,
you'll post
yeah.
something from your daily reading that really touches me quite often. And
Aw,
so I think
that's
that's
nice.
part of it.
So let's talk about friendships. You and I have been friends for like a long time, a long, long time. You were the maid of honor in my wedding, as a matter of fact. And I was trying to think this morning, was it 24 years
Oh
ago?
my gosh, yes.
That's crazy. Um, but what are you doing these days? Because friendships take, you know, you have to be intentional with friendships. So what do you do these days to really kind of stay in touch with your friends and make that a priority in your life?
I'm going to answer this question very honestly. And I think one of the reasons one of the takeaways for me in doing this podcast is to be more intentional about reaching out to people, because I've been very isolated this last year. Part of it is starting a new business or a new part of my business and just trying to get stuff going and learning all the time. And I haven't seen my girlfriends as much as I could have. And so because I was doing this today, I had to go to town, and I stopped and got coffee and a donut, and I got my friend Shannon a donut. And I
Ah,
so I'm staying in touch by buying donuts for my girlfriends.
I'm a chocolate glazed girl. Just
It was chocolate.
for
It's
the
so
future.
good. Yeah. Yeah.
Just if you're in
And
Donaldson and you're near the near the Krispy Kreme in
yeah.
Donaldson.
Well, another plug, follow Connie and Johnny on Instagram. It's CONNY and JONNY. I don't know these people, but these donuts are amazing. And I'm sorry if you didn't need to hear that, but they had a organic peach fritter this summer that I drove to Franklin to get one. It was so good.
Oh
Anyway,
my, I would have
yeah,
done that because I do love apple fritters, but I'm a peach girl. So I've never even heard of a peach fritter,
it
but
was so good.
that's
Yeah.
something I would love. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad that this has because it same. I mean, during the pandemic, I think a lot of people um, had a hard time staying in
Yeah.
touch, but there were a couple of groups of friends that we made a weekly Zoom call together, and we all saw each other on Zoom. And then my two sisters that live, one's in San Antonio and Oklahoma City. We would get on house party like a couple of days a week as we were having coffee in the mornings and just visit,
Oh, that's cool.
and
Yeah.
just see each other's face, even though
Yeah.
it's on Zoom or house party or whatever. And we were like, I think we've gotten closer during the pandemic just because we were so intentional about that little morning coffee time with one another.
That's
So
a great idea.
yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
really
I
great.
mean, nothing is as good as face to face, right? But I think it is important. So, okay. So last thing, what about self care? What's your go to self care tip?
Um, I honestly, my self-care is that morning spiritual routine. Um, and another thing I've done over this past year, like a lot of times I feel like I'm not somebody that treats myself to facials and things like that. And I really think we should. I think we should do that if we have the extra funds or whatever. But I have booked a couple of massages over the past year because I feel like I hold so much stuff in my body, and I have been more anxious this year than I ever have.
Mm.
And I heard another podcast about that. It was on the Brene Brown Dare to Lead podcast with this lady, Amy Cuddy, but she wrote an article called Pandemic Flux that a lot of people are talking about, that was in the Washington Post, I believe. But they're doctors of psychology and whatever, however many degrees they have, but it's a real thing, the anxiety and guilt in some ways. And it's a lot. I have a friend that is on a ventilator right now. You
Oh,
know
I'm
what I mean?
sorry. Yeah.
And I'm sure all of us have been touched by this whole thing. And it's
Mm. Mhm.
you know, massage, daily routine, just trying to tap in and eating more donuts with your girlfriends.
There you go. I like that. Oh man, I'm so glad you came on today just because I knew you would have a lot to offer our listeners, but also just because I love being in your presence and I love seeing your face and visiting with you. And we need to um, get together soon for sure.
We
Um,
do. I love you too.
I love you. I miss you, but we'll get together. And like I said, I'm going to link your Instagram. Do you have a Facebook too? You do, don't you?
I do. There's an LP Creative Therapy Facebook, but
Okay.
if you have any questions about anything, just DM me on Instagram.
Okay.
That's where I am more often. So
Okay. I'll definitely put all the ways to get in touch with LeAnn. You guys, if you are interested in upping your creative game, you need to get in touch with LeAnn. Um,
thanks, Marcia.
Anything else before we go? I guess that's it. I don't want to go because I don't want to say goodbye, but I know you have to go. So we'll talk soon. Thanks again. I love you, my friend.
Okay, safe travels.
Thank you. Bye.